Oh, the horror store, client horror stories, everybody loves them. And today I'll share mine and what I learned from them so perhaps you can avoid them. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, what is up? It's story time. I wanted to take today's video to share some of my stories for when I was starting out as a freelance designer and things weren't working really well. And I've failed, a lot of things failed, and it was pretty tough. Now, I know that I'm actually pretty much against calling on clients like bad clients, all clients are bad, and sharing like horror stories with clients. And I think that's not the purpose of this video. I don't think all clients are bad, especially the clients that I've been working on with the past few years. They've been phenomenal. But I think that these horror stories happen when we're starting out because we're working with the wrong clients probably, and we're not sure how to set expectations correctly. So let's just dive in to some of these stories. So you see that even people that might be further ahead of the journey than you still suffered through the same horrible, horrible things. Story number one, this is actually back when I was in high school, and this was the first ever paid freelance project that I did when I was in high school. The project was to build with 3D some kind of representation of a biblical story. So based on kind of a diagrams that they had for when, the Hebrews were leaving Egypt, and they had kind of a portable shrine or something. I'm not sure how to call this. And I had to rebuild this and kind of create a 3D video. So that was actually my first project that I got actually, I would say, nice money for. So it was like few hundred dollars, I guess, which was back at the time for a high school student, pretty nice sum of money to get. And the story went like this. So I had a contract, like a basic one-page contract with this person, because basically my father told me, hey, look, before you're starting to work, put in a piece of paper that basically says what you're going to do and how much they're going to pay you. And so we had kind of a one sheet with the basic sums of money. But there was a lot of things over there that were not exactly, outlined in this contract. One example is what happens after the project finishes and if they have some iterations that they want to do. So the way that really this project went is I've built all this project, and almost when I was like 80% of the project, my computer crashed and I didn't have backup. And I actually had to start from scratch after like 3 months of work. So that was super, super frustrating. That's obviously my bad, and I learned to do backups ever since then. But I was already frustrated even without the client doing anything, bad, because I had to work, extra time. Obviously, the second time that I rebuilt this was faster, and actually the results was better, but I was already frustrated. Now, when I delivered the project, and then they started asking for iterations over iterations, and then I said, you know what, so if you want to keep working with me, here's my hourly rate, and let's keep working that way, and I can do some more iterations for you. And they were basically saying, you know what, that's a little bit expensive for us working on on an hourly base. So just give us the files and we'll do we'll take care of it from here. And at that point, I was pretty frustrated because I was like, they're trying to cheat on me. They don't want to pay me. I own the files because I created it. So I deserve, to do all the other work after the project is over. And I basically refused to give them the original files. Now, that one sheet paper that we had basically didn't have it didn't talk about what to do, who owns the files, basically. So I basically didn't want to give them the file. They were like, you have to give us the files. And we started to kind of argue about it that way. At the end of an angry phone call, he was like, I'm coming to your house to take the files right now. And mind you, I was like 17 or 18 at the time, home alone. I have this client, like a weird client, coming into my house. He's after me after I'm not willing to give him the file. So I was quite scared. I actually ran out of the house so I won't be there when he came there. At the end of the day, I was thinking about this, and I was like, dude, I don't want to work with this kind of person. I don't want him to, to bother me anymore. So I was like, you know what? Screw that. Here's the files. I don't want to work with you ever again. And thinking about this, from a few years after the fact, I actually think that I don't want to lock clients into working with me. So for me, when they actually pay the full amount of the project, they own the files. Even if I've built them, even if they've paid for it, so they own everything, the intellectual, property, everything. Basically, I give it to them. And if they want to keep working with me, which I believe now, again, after years of experience, if you give them good experience, they'll probably want to keep working with you. Because just the hassle of looking for somebody else is usually higher than that. So I want my clients to want to work with me. I don't want to force client into working with me. I don't feel like that's the idea of the contract, to force somebody into working with you, to chaining them into you, and by having kind of a leverage over them because you have the files and they have to work with you. So again, if I would be like, if I would do that again if I can give advice to my younger self, I was just like, don't worry about this. You don't want to keep working with people who don't want to pay you anyway. So just give them the file and get rid of it. So that was horror story number one. It was kind of scary as your first paid freelance project. The second project happened a few years later. It was actually after I was in high school, but the client was actually a high school friend, somebody that went in class with me, and he remembered, that I was doing design, and he started a company with his girlfriend at the time, and they came to me to help them with branding and a logo for the whole project. And it was kind of a small project. It was just the logo and maybe a couple of other applications of the brand. And because he was my friend from class, I immediately started the project as in, you know what, I'm going to give you a discount. And they were like, we don't have a lot of money. I was like, let me give you a discount because we're friends and we want to keep it as friends. And so we in that case, actually, I don't think that we had it like a legal contract because I felt like he's my friend, I can trust him and all of that. So I think what happened back then is that I did the logo for them and they actually paid me the money. And then they came back afterwards and keep asking for revisions. And, at some point I couldn't do this anymore. And they were like, you know what? So we want our money back. And at that point I was like, yo, guys, I already did the work for you and you got the work. It's okay that you don't like it right now or maybe you're not going to use it, but I did the work and, I'm going to keep the money. And in that point, we had kind of a fall off, I would say. It was pretty dramatic. I think we had a pretty big fight over that. And at the end of the day, again, I decided, you know what, it's probably not worth to ruin this friendship over not a lot of money. It was probably around maybe $100, $200 of that money back in the time. And I gave them their money back. And, one of the biggest takeaways for me was that, you know what, I'm not sure that I want to keep working with friends. It's a pretty dangerous place. It kind of showed me what happened when things go wrong. Even if, when you are working with a friend and money comes into play, sometimes people are changed or they react differently and it might affect your friendship. Now, I'm not saying I had other experience working with friends which went well. And so I'm not saying don't ever work with friends, but I think it's important, just like when you maybe get into marriage or any other type of relationship, you want to kind of run scenarios as in what would happen if we don't agree on this? How would we break up and do this in a way where we're not mad at each other? Now, right now, when I do work with legitimate proposals and contracts, I always state up front, if I do the job, I get the money, and then there's no refunds on it because I basically did the work. And I make sure that we're very clear on that up front. Back in the day, again, I wasn't working with a clear contract or a proposal. We didn't clarify all these expectations up front. And so that's usually the problem. The problem is usually not setting expectations. And sometimes when you're lacking the experience, you don't know what expectations you need to set because you haven't seen everything that can go wrong, which a lot of times do go wrong. Now, the last story is actually a few years later. I was building a website for a musician, and she was pretty cool. I had a really good time working with her. That was back in the days of Flash websites, so kind of animations for the website, and that was a pretty fun project to work with. Maybe first project that I got something like $1,000 to build that website or something like that. Now, I remember when I finished doing the website for her, and she loved it. She was like, come watch my show. So she invited me to a concert, and I went there right after work. So I had a backpack with all of my belongings, including my music player. Now, this is back in the day before we had iPhones and music, so I kind of had like my MP3 player. It was my iRiver, like a device that I loved so much, and had all of my, albums on it. Back then, collecting music was much harder than it is today when you have availability to stream everything. Back then, you had to like download or buy or transfer your CDs into MP3. So that was like a really precious object to me. Now, I went to the concert, and turns out when I left, I couldn't find my bag, so it was missing. And I went back to the concert hall the day afterwards, and nobody could have found it. And that was like a total bummer for me, because basically I had to buy everything again that was in this backpack, which I think, again, I had to buy this new iRiver, and I think it basically brought me back into not making any money off this project just because I had to buy everything that was in this backpack again. Now, the funny thing is that a few months later, because we were still in touch, she actually gave me a call, and turned out that it was the drummer of the band who actually stole my backpack. And that was kind of like so frustrating, because I don't know if she knew about it or she didn't, but turns out he stole it, and she knew I was looking for it because I was calling her. And yeah, it's just, it felt sucked, because at the end of the day, I didn't make any money working on this project, which took a long time and I was very proud of, and also kind of feel like soured our relationship, because there was not much trust there overall. I don't know that I have any kind of takeaway from this specific story. It's just, it sucks that it happens, and it's frustrating. But these things happen. So I just wanted to share some of these stories with you so that you know, whether if you're just starting out right now, or if you're having one of these horror stories at the moment, similar or different, know that it's just kind of something that's a phase in your journey as a designer. And as you move along, as you learn from these mistakes, as you learn to choose better clients and to better set expectations, these things happen less and less. And I have to say that over the last really possibly 10 years, I really love all of my clients. They're my best friends. And so I'm really actually pissed off when I see all these design humor kind of like laughing on clients, and clients are so horrible, because most of the times clients are not horrible. And a lot of times it's our responsibilities as freelancers, and to know how to work with them, and when we need to say no and set boundaries. So I hope this kind of motivates you to move forward with your own journey, never give up, and start finding great clients and setting good expectations with them. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.